Getting real with Reality Wellness. Nicky Visser joins us again from Reality Wellness, and our topic today is the impact of attachment styles. Nicky, welcome once again.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ian. I really appreciate having me back again. And I suppose we're on the second topic for relationships, like you said, on the impacts of attachment styles.
Yes, absolutely. And the last one was so insightful on relationships and communication. Now we come to attachment styles. And now I'm also very curious to know, what are attachment styles and how do you develop an attachment style?
Okay, so when we talk about attachment styles, so in the last episode, we obviously spoke about relationships and communication and all of that. And what's interesting is something that feeds into how you communicate and how your relationship sort of forms is something called an attachment style. Now, what an attachment style is essentially some behaviors that are reflected through your emotional connection to that person. So the way that you emotionally connect with another person is generally centered on what is called your attachment style. Now, where this usually comes from is usually the emotional connection or bond that you formed from a primary caregiver or from a parent or whoever looked after you during your childhood. So generally, your attachment styles are normally actually developed from childhood, and usually from the infancy phase. When we talk about the infancy phase, depending on how your parents met certain needs, that would determine the type of attachment style that you would have. And that would determine the kind of emotional connection that you had. And all of it is primarily focused on were my needs met and what were those needs? So, for example, if I cried and did my parents come to pick me up and see if I was okay? Or did they just ignore me or leave me behind? Or did they sometimes pick me up and sometimes leave me and sometimes pick me up and sometimes leave me? And so you would have a bit of inconsistencies. And so usually in this time, you perceive your needs are going to be met or not met. And that's going to tell you, how do I connect and emotionally connect with this person looking after me? Now, what's interesting, so in other words, did they make you feel safe as well? And did they make you feel understood in those ages? What's interesting, though, is even though this is something from infancy, it still impacts you all the way up to adulthood, or at least, all the way to adulthood to, retirement age. It will forever and ever impact you.
Wow. Why are they so important to talk about in the context of relationships, Nicky?
Well, remember, like I mentioned earlier, we spoke about relationships and communication. Now, your attachment style is going to determine that communication style that will most likely work best for you. Or not that just work best, but what you generally use. It's also going to determine the type of relationship that you have, because it will change the connection that you have with your partner. Your attachment style is going to play a big role in your relationship because it will determine that connection or that bond, and whether you, for example, keep your partner at an arm's length, or whether you are overly anxious about them leaving, so you're quite needy, or whether you have quite a strong relationship with them. So it's really important because now it feeds into the kinds of connections you make with other people. And yes, we're talking about partnerships and romantic relationships, but it can also impact other types of relationships, such as your friendships and things like that too.
And what are the different attachment styles?
So there are 4 attachment styles that you will find in psychology. If you look up the different attachment styles, you'll see there'll be probably different names around them. Some of them have 2 names, so just bear with me as I'm explaining them. But the one attachment style is called the secure attachment, and it sounds exactly as that. I feel secure in my relationship. I feel I can trust my relationship. I feel that I have, and usually that's centered around having a good self-esteem, and because you have a good self-esteem, you're okay with intimacy, you're happy to get support from them and from others, you're willing to share your feelings, you generally feel that you're accepted and there's self-acceptance, there's autonomy in your relationship, so you can move around, be free, do what you need to do. So it's almost like you have a healthy amount of independence. Now, secure attachment style generally from a conflict point of view would also be, if you're in having conflict with someone in a secure style, there's no point in that conversation they're going to think, oh, this person doesn't love me, or they hate me, or they don't want to be with me, or things like that. So they know that I'm confident in my relationship with you. So because I'm confident in you and I'm confident in myself, I'm comfortable, and even if we have conflict, it's not a problem. So they're generally going to deal with conflict quite well and in quite a healthy way most of the time. And it's almost like they have this belief that I want you to love me, and I love me, and I'm worthy of love, and I'm good enough of your love, and you're good enough of my love. So that's the sort of mentality they're in. Then you have your anxious attachment style, which is also called ambivalent. An anxious attachment style is basically someone who, as it sounds, they're very anxious in their relationship. So they feel that, they're scared. They're scared that their partner's going to leave. They're scared their partner's not going to love them. And if they do anything wrong, their partner's going to basically leave them behind. And they don't want that. They almost have this like deep-rooted fear of like abandonment, where they just want their relationship to work. And these are the kinds of people who will generally in a conflict not want conflict at all, so they're going to avoid it. Or if they get into conflict, they want it to be handled straight away, because if we don't deal with it now, you're going to leave me and you're going to be angry and you're not going to come back. And so they get close and they worry that their partners are going to love them. So they're going to do a lot of things to do that. And they get very distressed and distraught when the relationship ends. What's interesting, though, is that they're very quick to fall in love. They fall in love with a lot of different people. And it's because that's what their aim in life is, to find love and to gain love. And it's almost like they're saying in their minds, please love me. That's essentially what they want. Then you have an avoidant dismissive attachment style, or they just call it avoidant. And that's when they are someone who generally struggles with intimacy. They're the person who puts their partner at an arm's length. So they feel that love is, like, as much as they want to believe in love, they just feel that love can be, fickle. And you don't know how people are going to respond to it. They don't want to get hurt, so they avoid getting hurt by keeping you at an arm's length. Maybe they do get close to you, but in a conflict situation, they're the kind of person who says, get away from me, don't talk to me again. I don't need you, I never needed you, that kind of thing. And it's because now they're trying to distance themselves before that person distances themselves. So before they get hurt, they hurt you, kind of thing. And so they're not going to share their thoughts and feelings, and they don't always like to emotionally invest in the relationship because they're scared the person's going to leave. And so they're going to push you away. They're going to say, please leave me alone, or don't fall in love. Then finally, you have the disorganized attachment style, which is also known as fearful avoidant attachment. And that's basically a very nice combination of anxious and avoidant. So it's almost like, please love me, but get away from me if you don't love me. So it's, and it depends on how that comes through. It's going to be a different kind of combination for every person, but it usually stems from having a family environment where there's a bit of fear, but also a lot of love in that family, where they've got a strong connection as a family, but at the same time, it's governed by a lot of like deep fear or respect and things like that. And so they can't open up, and they tend to self-sabotage, and they don't always have trust because it's inconsistent. So they're going to be inconsistent in their relationships too.
Wow, very insightful, Nicky. And then finally, can your attachment style change?
Yes, it actually can. Interestingly, although it's something that is very hard to change because it comes from childhood backgrounds, it can change with the right type of relationship, especially long-term relationships. If you're someone within a long-term relationship, when the more that you gain their trust and the more that they gain your trust, the more that those relationship styles can change. And I mean, that's talking about from an anxious or an avoidant point of view, but even from a secure point of view, you might have a secure type, and then with enough, maybe poor treatment, it might actually change as well. So it can go both ways, good and bad. But it definitely can, especially with the right healing, it can become secure with time, and also self-work. It's not just your partner's job. Your partner's job is not to heal you. You need to heal yourself, but it's also going to take a lot of personal work in terms of managing trauma and, personal things that have happened in your life.
And Nicky, now this is our final question for today. How do you ensure that your partner still feels heard or loved in these conflict situations?
Yeah, so when it comes to attachment styles, you would have noticed that a lot of the time, especially in a conflict situation, they often fear that the partner is going to leave or not love them. And so it's really important, especially regardless of what their attachment style is, whether it's secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized, that in all conflict situations, they always feel loved and they always feel heard. And for me, the most important thing is in any conversation is you need to validate and reassure your partner. So when something's gone wrong or when something's happening, validate them and say, I can see how that happened, or I can see why this has upset you so much. And it's for me, it's a respect thing. And when you're mutually respecting each other, that person's always going to feel loved in that moment. For a secure attachment style, it's just being honest about your feelings and in a constructive way, not blaming them, not attacking them and things like that. For them, what makes them feel loved is knowing that I have mutual respect for you and you have respect for me, and we're all in a good space and we're constructively working together. For an anxious type, generally reassurance is very important. So as much as we need to validate, we also need to reassure that I'm upset about the situation. I'm not angry at you and I still love you. And sometimes that reassurance, it can be annoying for some people. They're like, why do I have to keep reassuring them? But sometimes that's what they need. And also just a guarantee. If you say, I need a bit of space, not that I need a space from you, I just need a space to regulate myself, and we're going to come back to this conversation in 20 minutes. So let them know when you're coming back to the conversation. And, especially when you need time to have some space. With an avoidant type, you're going to need to give them space also to collect themselves. Sometimes they can attack you in the conversation because they feel frustrated and angry and they think that you're going to leave as well. So they're going to need validation, they're going to need reassurance, but also know when to give them the space to calm down and then have the conversation. And also you might have to learn to read between the lines. Sometimes they don't tell you what they want to say. And sometimes you have to say, look, I can see you're not telling me everything. And I would love to hear from you what else I can do for you to support you and make you feel at ease. So sometimes you just kind of have to give them that reassurance that you're seeing them, you're noticing them. For disorganized, because it's a combination of the two, it's going to be very similar depending on the type of argument. Generally, reassurance is going to work best, validation is going to work best, but also just in general, giving them the space to understand their own feelings and, that sort of thing. So, and also just checking in with them, seeing where they are mentally. So those are sort of the ways to keep them feeling like they're loved.
Nicky, thank you so much. That wraps up attachment styles on Getting Real with Reality Wellness today. Another very insightful topic. Thank you so much for your time. Tell us quickly, how do we get in touch with Reality Wellness and with you?
So Reality Wellness, we have a website, www.realitywellness.co.za. We've got some contact details on there that you can contact us. Obviously, if you're looking for me specifically, you can just let them know you're looking for Nicky. And then I'm happy to support you if you have any questions on our services and things like that. In terms of anywhere else you can find our content, so there's a blog, there's articles on the website, but there's also a podcast on Spotify called A Little Bit of Reality. So if you would like to listen to a bit more on some interesting topics also on well-being, you're more than welcome to go there and have a good listen.
Nicky, thank you so much. Until next time.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Ian.